that were here a couple weeks ago, I gave you the assignment. Now, the assignment was when you're out there and communicating, you're stressed, and did you either use the red wheel or the blue wheel as a strategy how to deal with your stress? Anybody want to start off with how they may or may not have used that? You went red wheel or blue wheel? You gotta go for it.
I know when I got in an argument with a friend of mine, one of my tendencies was to like, and I didn't even know what the red wheel was, just to avoid.
Yeah.
And just be on like, so like, oh, whatever, and just totally don't say nothing, no communication whatsoever. And I always thought that was like a good thing, like, I didn't know that was a bad thing, but I caught myself when I learned that was a red wheel. I learned that, and so when I went to go do that again, when we got into a disagreement, I went to go like, yeah, whatever. Instead of doing that, I just look at her and I go, no, I'm not gonna get that far in communicating or talking with you right now because you're not hearing me and I'm not hearing you. So let's just reconvene like in 10, 15 minutes.
Wow.
That's
really good.
I walked away.
Your name again, I apologize. Isaiah. So what Isaiah just explained, if I heard you correctly, I'm going to use one of the blue wheel techniques. I'm going to rephrase what I heard you say. So what I heard you say, Isaiah, was that in the middle of a conversation with this person that you usually use the avoidance, I'm not going to talk right now, and you just take off. You said, you know what? Obviously, we're not hearing each other right now. Let's have this conversation in 15 minutes when cooler heads prevail. Is that kind of what you said? That's emotional intelligence. You guys get that? Mm-hmm. So what happens is we have these habits, right? And they're learned behaviors. So Isaiah had a learned behavior of using avoidance, which is a negative communication style. Not that avoidance doesn't work sometimes, but it really doesn't get you the communication that you want from the other person. Right. It usually makes the other person defensive. Okay, there he goes again. There he goes again. He's always leading on me, right? Yeah. And then there's this cycle of miscommunication. What you did was you said, hey, you know what? We're not hearing each other right now. Let's take 15 minutes. If we need longer than that, we'll take that. Let's see if we can come back and cooler heads prevail and have the conversation. Right. That's emotional intelligence. Good job, buddy. That's huge. And you know what? It's all the concept, right? Because I never learned these blue wheel tools. I always knew the red ones. Right. So that's all I know. That's all I'm going to use, right? Exactly. So when you use the blue ones, and it just takes time, you got to be cognizant of using it. Very good. Dude, I'm telling you, that is awesome. Keep doing it, and it'll become habit, right?
Yeah, that's true. I don't know worry about doing that no more.
Right. So because your tendency is to avoid or to say what you said, right?
And just totally shut off and like shut down and be like, let them do whatever they want to say. Just don't even like acknowledge it whatsoever. Just avoid any type of communication whatsoever. Just like there was a brick wall next to that person, and I don't see them.
Yeah, and they're sitting right next to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who else had an example how they use either the red or blue wheel?
I had a situation with
a
family member, and it always comes up because they always do the same thing, and no one ever tells them not to do it.
Okay.
Everyone in the family dislikes what he does, his thing, and I just had enough. And if I told my mother, no one ever says anything, so we're never going to stop.
Correct.
Do it the right way. And I started to. I was talking with him, my brother, and he blew up more than when I used to hit him up before the wrong way. The red blew away, So, at the end of it, we were good, but I tried to maintain, my volume low. I didn't want to seem aggressive or anything, because I'm the more aggressive one of the two. And when I was doing that, he said, "Oh, so now you can keep that tone." So like he thought I was trying to manipulate him somewhere to keep my tone, but I wasn't. I was trying not to be aggressive to him. I didn't want to get him going, But it didn't start out so good, but in the end, we're good.
So let me help you with something, Isaac. So Isaac has a situation. Let me see if I heard what you
He
said.
throws his cigarette butts on family members' lawns everywhere he goes.
Everywhere. And it's irritating, and
No
no
one
one says anything about it.
No.
So what I hear you saying is this guy has a disrespect by throwing his cigarette butts in places
And the
where.
little kids are picking him up. Trying to
Oh, so it's one of those behaviors that you wish he would curb, at least be mindful of it, right?
Yeah.
So no one says anything, so he's not going to do anything about it. You decided to speak into it. We call it assertiveness, right?
Because my nephew just started to pick up the buzz and trying to
There you go.
7.
They're 7 years old.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I hear you saying is that you decided to approach it with a calm voice, right? Your tone was low, unlike you, right? Usually, dude, what are you doing, right?
You know, once-
Pick up your freaking cigarette butts, will you?
A little bit like,
A little bit more like that?
no.
Okay, so
More like, hey, you know what? I'm getting tired of you like that.
get tired of you doing
Everybody
that.
don't like it, but you know, I'm the one that like that, but I just, hey, bro, can you please, man? Look what's going on. Little Skyler's got one of the buttons in his back pocket. For what? For later when we get to life? Come on, please, bro. It's not in your house. You want, do I need to bring you a can and I'll put it right there for you, sand. He looked at me like,
So what spoke on the blue wheel that he just mentioned? He just mentioned he was gonna bring a can. What spoke is that?
That's a little offer solutions.
Seeking compromise.
Yeah, I think
He said, hey, brother, you know what? I'd be happy to bring a can, that would help you.
and I think he thought I was being sarcastic.
Well, I'm sure
I
he did.
wasn't.
No, it doesn't matter. You gotta remember, who has the program, you or him? So he's gonna operate in red wheel. That's what we're gonna go over today. So what happens is that we lump the most widely used communication skills as passive, passive-aggressive, or aggressive. And if you don't have any emotional, intelligent skills, then what are you gonna operate in? The red wheel, right? There's no choice. You're gonna go avoidance, you're gonna get, your tone's gonna elevate, you're gonna get kind of a little demonstrative, right? You're gonna come at them and intimidate them. You know what I'm saying? Well, I bet you do. I give it my brothers too, man. Hey, that's what brothers do. Who else? Yes,
Is this an anger management class?
yeah.
Okay,
It's your first time?
yes.
No kidding. What's your name?
Carla?
Carla, nice to meet you, Carla. So who else has an example of the homework 2 weeks ago? Anybody? Della, do you have an example?
I totally forgot my paperwork at home.
Well, we're not asking about paperwork. Did you ever use the red wheel or the blue wheel? In the past 2 weeks, have you used the red wheel or the blue wheel?
The blue one.
Well, how did you do it?
I just kind of, thought about just staying calm and focusing more on maybe listening. Usually I don't listen. Usually it's more like I speak. And I'm thinking, during that time, it's more like, I gave more time for listening.
Wow. So we call that self-reflection, self-talk, right? There's nothing wrong with self-talk. Because sometimes your first thought is wrong. Your first thought is usually a red wheel technique. I'm going to interrupt them. I'm going to avoid them. I'm going to intimidate them. I'm going to rage on them. I'm going to be inattentive to how this phrase is going to make them feel, right? It's like what my brother here, Isaac, just said. He said, you know what? Come on, dude. You basically pull your head out, man. What do you think you're doing over there, right? So that puts him on the defense, right? But if you give yourself a little self-talk, like what you did, he said, you know what? I'm going to hold on. How am I going to say this? No one else says it. Hey, man.
I couldn't
Voice
speak,
was
I
calm.
couldn't speak any softer.
But boy, that's okay.
Any softer, you wouldn't have heard me. You know what I mean? I was like, come on, real soft.
But here's the deal. So normally you're not soft, right? With him.
A long time ago, yeah.
With him.
Oh, no.
Normally you're not.
No.
So here's the only thing people have to go on is the past experiences they've had with your behavior. Until you start to have some new behavior on an ongoing basis, then all of a sudden they're gonna go, hey, Isaac, man, something's changed about you, man. Dude, you talk differently. Yeah, man, I'm starting to learn how to have some emotional intelligence. I don't need to be taking your inventory all the time, but we do need to be mindful of these young kids that are gonna pick up your cigarette butts. We don't want them picking up that habit. Look what it's done for us, brother. Right? I mean, it's really simple. And whether he receives it or not, that's not your point. Your point is you were able to say it, and now someone's spoken into it. Make sense?
And next weekend, there's gonna be a can right there.
Make it.
I'm not gonna say nothing, just put it right there.
Yeah, put a little hoop on it, see if you can make it in the hoop. What's your name? Robert? All right. So, Robert and Carla and Maria, if you guys can pull out that red wheel on there, we're gonna do a little review real quick, okay? So you guys understand what we're talking about. All right. So everybody else has those red and blue wheels, right? So this red wheel is characteristics we have learned either by our parents, by our friends, by the world that comes in and just kind of shows us how to communicate in a way that's really pretty negative most of the time, okay? So inattentiveness, you see the word inattentiveness? Does anybody remember the definition of inattentiveness? Okay, you do. What's the definition of inattentiveness?
Failure to recognize your actions that affect other people.
So it's failure to recognize your actions that affect other people, right? If I come in the room and I'm yelling at someone, all of a sudden, everybody's gonna be defensive. They're either gonna walk away or start to get pretty, their nonverbal is gonna go, man, what's wrong with this dude, right? So if you're always elevated in speech and you don't realize how elevated your speech is all the time, that type of negative behavior becomes, no one wants to hang around you. You're inattentive to that, right? My buddy Isaiah, he had that when he came in, just yelling, right? Yelling at his loved one there, and he's going, that's not getting me nothing. I keep telling him. Delia had a situation with her family, remember that? And what was the situation with your family you were telling me about after class last time? Yeah.
Gosh, I don't even remember.
I think it was with your mom or somebody. They weren't listening, or you were always having to, it was maybe it was your husband that Delia gave the example of the lunchbox, and you had something happening over and over again that you couldn't speak into.
No, I think that was Pastor.
Yeah, that was Delfina.
Yeah, that was Pastor, but you had another situation with one of your loved ones. Who is it that you live with?
I just live with my brother, but I live with my, I live by myself, but my brother just.
Just you and your brother? Okay, maybe it was Pastor. I thought there was some example you came and talked to me about last week, 2 weeks ago.
I think that was Vera.
What was it, Vera?
I think it was Vera that had the problem with her husband.
Maybe it was Vera. Yeah, I get it all mixed up sometimes.
But she meet a lot of different people every day, so probably,
So inattention is the failure to see your actions and the collateral damage that happens on the backside, right? Because here's the reality. You can come in with the best intentions like Isaac did, and he really wants to help these kids not pick up the habit of smoking. But if he comes in demonstrative, he comes in with rage and anger and hostility, right? Then all of a sudden, all eyes are pointed at Isaac, and Isaac's just trying to help the situation. All of a sudden it backfires. He's going, hey, I'm just trying to help the situation. No one else is speaking up. He becomes the bad guy. He comes in with a soft tone. He comes in with, hey, I'm going to be like a broken record. That's another technique. Every time I come, I'm going to remind you, I'm going to put the can there, I'm going to talk calm. And sooner or later, they're going to go, that's probably a good idea. But it may take a month, may take 2 months. But you've got to be consistent in it, right? So the next one is avoidance. What's the definition of avoidance?
I don't know the exact definition, but I know what I think the definition would be was to just totally shut down or ignore whatever the other person has to say in the midst of an argument. Just so there's no acknowledgement that they're even in your area or whatever,
In hopes that you would control and manipulate them to then talk to you. So you're avoiding them, right? Thinking, that's going to get them to talk to me eventually because they're going to say, I'm not talking to them anymore, right? So then that's a form of control and a form of manipulation. Does that make sense? Right? But we don't see it like that. We think, I'm just avoiding them, right?
I don't argue, I don't want to fight.
Right? But what you're trying to do is control them through the avoidance.
That's pretty
right?
I never even thought about that. That's right.
That's what we try to do, right? What is the definition of interrupting?
Being rude.
Being rude? Yeah. So I'm talking, right? You keep butting in on me, and I can't even get a word sideways. And all of a sudden, I'm going, Carla, you're not even listening to me because you think your opinion is more important than what I'm saying. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? So learning how to listen is part of communication. You have to learn how to listen, Robert, because you have to learn to listen and listen to learn. Right? Let's say that together. You have to learn to listen and listen to learn. You cannot listen when you're talking. It's a proven fact. If you're talking, you're not listening, right? So the definition of rage is what?
Anger.
What's the definition of rage? Have you ever seen someone in a rage? Out of control.
Impossible to think clearly.
Impossible to think clearly. When you finally hit that rage, all of a sudden, all rational thought has gone out the window. Hostility, bitterness towards someone, sense of resentment, right? You don't even want to be around them.
Can you do, what was the definition of avoidance one more time?
What?
The avoidance.
Avoidance. Let me see right here. I'll give you the true definition right out of the book.
No, I like the way you worded that, because if you think about that, I do that, and like.
Well, the avoidance I said to you is because avoidance really is, you want to control and manipulate them.
Is it like being passive towards the situation?
Failing to deal with the real source of the perceived conflict, which if you don't want to deal with it, you're thinking, if I don't deal with it, finally they're going to come back and talk to me. So it's control and manipulation. Okay?
Does that thing?
Well, you're not
Not all
going
the
to.
time.
You're trying to control it so there's no blow up or?
Right, and sometimes the best tool is to walk away, but walk away with a sense of what Isaac said. Hey, can we come back and talk this when you're ready? Can I get back to you in an hour and see if you're ready to talk about it?
Yeah.
And if they're not, say, how much time do you need?
And that,
Right.
that kind of puts a cushion on it, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it doesn't, you don't just avoid it, because here's the reality, when you come back and see him again, you're gonna be thinking about that last conversation.
Is that when you're being passive and not attentive to the issue?
Absolutely, right? So that passive anger is just as volatile as aggressive anger, just in a different form.
The different level of severity of the situation, right?
That's right, Carla. I'm glad you're here today.
Yeah.
So let's look at the blue wheel real quick, and we'll review for those that are brand new. So active listening is listening with your head and your heart, right? If you're listening with just your head, you're thinking about what you're gonna say after they get done talking. If you listen with your head and your heart, then you can have some empathy and say, you know what? Okay, I see your side. I may not agree with it, but I see your side, right? The other one is focusing. So when you're talking to someone, you want to be attentive. You want to be looking at them. You want to be looking at your phone. Oh, yeah, I hear you. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah. What else do you want to talk about? Does that make you feel like the guy's listening to you or the gal's listening to you? How many times does that happen to you guys?
You know,
Right.
sometimes it happens, I'll just say something quirky just to see if they catch it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I do sometimes.
Smart, that's smart.
right?
Well, off the wall
But
question.
you guys gotta remember something. You guys have the program. They don't have the program. So they're gonna operate out of those red wheel because that's all they know. It doesn't mean you need to get angry about it. You're just, the more you practice it, the more they're gonna catch it. Because more is caught than taught. How many of you have kids in here? How many of you have seen your kids model what you do? Right?
As much you see, what you do type thing.
Right. So a lot of it's more caught than taught. But if you teach them these new skills, they're gonna catch that. And there's no better time to start than today. And it takes time. It just takes time. Okay? So let's look at the seeking compromise. Isaac had a great story about that, but here it is. It's using empathy and common sense to try to meet the other person halfway in order to get a win-win on both parts. So what he did was he says, hey, you know what, stop your mouth. I hear you, I know you're not gonna stop smoking. But if I could bring a coffee can over here to put your buds in, that would, right? The odds of his habit, flicking that cigarette, is probably what he does. It's gonna take time for him to break that habit. But now what he has someone who's spoken into it in a way of assertive communication, not anger, not using the red wheel. Like, dude, if you do that one more time, I'm gonna pummel you. Well, that's really gonna get him far, right? That's gonna cause an argument and maybe a fight. This way, you just continue down that path and see what happens. The worst thing that can happen, Isaac, he just keeps doing it. That's the worst thing that could happen.
I used to pick up all his buds and before coffee before he left. I just open the door and put him on his seat. And then you hear, you hear.
That's one way to do it. I would
No, that
say,
wasn't the way.
yeah, no, but I would say that's red wheel communication, right? It's manipulative, it's kind of sneaky, right? Kind of in your face. Could have said, hey, you know what? I tell you what. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna pick these up, I'm gonna put them in your car if you don't stop doing it. That's more of a threat, right? If you don't want them in your car, then I suggest you pick them up. Now, I don't know what that's gonna do long term, but it's one of those situations where he sees how many are there. If you put them in a cup or something, you put them in a bag, and say, hey man, this is how many are out.
So 98% of the time, they give in, right?
98% of the time, over time, they realize I should probably change the behavior. But it's gotta start with you, not with them. Honest feedback or rephrasing. Did anybody use the rephrasing technique this last week? Anybody? I used it twice today, just in here, didn't I? I repeated back what Isaac said,
Yeah,
Isaiah, and Isaiah, did you feel like I heard you?
I did.
How about you, Isaac? Did you feel like I heard you? Maria, did I used it with you too? Did you feel like I heard you? So what I heard you just say is 98% of the time, they get it. Is that what you said? Okay, so I just rephrased back what you said to me. Do you feel like I heard what you said? No, do you feel like I heard what you spoke to me?
Yeah.
So that's rephrasing. You just take what someone said and you speak it back to them, and then you say this at the end. Hey, is that what you said? Because maybe you didn't hear it right. If you didn't hear it right, you can say, oh, wow, I didn't hear it. Have you ever had
Come
someone,
again? What?
yeah, have you ever heard someone say something to you and you took
Yeah.
it all wrong? I didn't mean that at all. So assertive communication is trying to just, hey, let me see if I heard what you said. No, it isn't what I said at all. I don't want to go out pizza tonight. I just said, that pizza place down there, they're doing pretty good, right? So, you have to look at it like, when you rephrase, you're just getting clarity from the other person. Honest feedback. Honest feedback is what Isaiah did. Honestly, he said, I don't want these other 7-year-olds picking up the habit of smoking. Right?
Isaac.
We'll start with I. Right? The eyes have it.
Yeah.
So how about expressing feelings? What does it mean to express your feelings?
To open, I don't know, a different door, I guess. Maybe? Or
Letting them
something.
know whatever situation, how it affects you, how it'll affect if it doesn't change, or the reason why you want it to change, so it's affecting somebody, right?
So feelings come and go. Feelings can be good, they can be bad, right? Have bad feelings, have good feelings. But feelings come and go, right? And no one's feelings are more important than your feelings. And you have the right to share your feelings. Doesn't mean they're gonna hear it. But I'm feeling that your behavior is gonna cause these young kids to start to pick up a habit of smoking, and I'm feeling bad about that. You're too sensitive. It's just like, and you're entitled to your feelings. In fact, that's more mature than not sharing your feelings, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I've been hearing it for like 2.5 years, and then
It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Stating your needs, and then assertiveness. So assertiveness is constantly saying what you mean and meaning what you say with respect and empathy to the listener. So for the new people, these are kind of where we're going. Again, I'm going to give you guys another homework assignment, and I need you to really work on this in the next 2 weeks. So anger is a secondary emotion for the newcomers. It's not a primary emotion. Anger comes out of stress. And when you're finally stressed enough, then what happens is you get here and then you flip your lid, and like Brandy said, there's no rational thought in rage. So what we want to do is we want to know our stressors, get here, and then have tools to come down. That's what the blue wheel does. Make sense? Okay? So here's the reality. This is what I want you guys to do this week. When you're stressed, I want you to think about how stressed you are and see if you use the red wheel, avoidance, rage, hostility, interruption, inattention, or did you use the blue wheel and you were able to have a little self-talk? You were able to actively listening with your head and your heart. You know what? I should probably just kind of wait about 5 minutes before I say something. It's hard to do, isn't it? Because when someone pisses you off, you just want to lash back out of it, right?
You go blank.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't know, but, that's what happens to me when I get upset.
So let me give you guys a tool. It's called the 3-second rule. If you can wait 3 seconds before saying something, usually you'll have a better answer than if you just react, and it'll give you a response. 1001, 1002, 1003. But in the moment, you just want to say something, right? But if you just say, wait a minute, it'll give you time to think about that for a minute. Make sense? All right. So today we're going to talk about styles of communication. And styles of communication, there's 4 styles. Everybody have that in front of them? This sheet right here. Everybody got it? So there's 4 styles of communication. Communication skills like anger are learned behaviors beginning in the family of origin and expanding outward as the world enlarges. Most of us use different styles of communication depending on the situation. Our moods, our behaviors of the person with whom we are attempting to communicate, as well as our basic personality types, temperaments, and roles we are in at the time we are communicating with the other person. Communication is a skill, and as such, can be learned with practice. Does anybody have to tell a little child that's 2 or 3 year old how to not say no? No, no, I'm not going to do that, Mom. No, right? No one taught them how to say no, right? They just actually do it. But we have to teach them how to say, what is it that you're saying no to, trying to communicate with them, right? But if we just come at them and, don't you ever say no again, right? Or don't you do that? And all of a sudden, we've taught them how to have that communication of intimidation, of volume tone, right? And we don't even see it. A soft answer turns away wrath every time. A soft answer turns away wrath. So we're going to look at these 4 styles today. We're going to actually camp out on 3, and we're going to get the assertive one in 2 weeks, because the assertive one is really what I'm going to teach you. Now, the 3 most widely styles of communication we're going to go over today is when you're dealing with people, I can almost guarantee you this. You're going to see which area they're in. And today, there's a little self-quiz at the end that you're going to take home, and you're going to ask someone you know the most. Brandy's going to ask her husband. Are you married?
Yeah.
So you're going to ask your husband.
They all know my husband. Yeah.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
Does she get angry at her husband? Just joking.
Nah.
So here's the first one. Passive communication. Passive communicator avoids direct eye contact, fails to accurately express his or her feelings, and tends to have low self-esteem. His or her anger is self-directed rather than to the source of the anger. Right? You ever seen someone doesn't look at you when they communicate? You know, they're feeling really self-dejected, right? And you're just going, why is it like this? Right? But they're angry at themselves inside most of the time. And they don't know how to express themselves. The second one is passive-aggressive. The passive-aggressive communicator often sounds passive but hostile in his or her manner of speaking. He or she often uses sarcasm and other hostile gestures to get the point across. The listener is left without any indication what the passive-aggressive communicator needs or wants. What is sarcasm?
You want the definition of sarcasm or an example of sarcasm?
Yeah.
I'm a brain part now. I'm normally actually really sarcastic person. I was actually my first language.
Isn't it a form of exaggeration?
Okay.
Like
Because
instigate,
you're accentuating it, you're being sarcastic.
that means you're instigating, right?
Yeah, in a way, yeah.
How about like we feed people here and we ask them, would you like a plate of food? Why else would I be here?
That's a
Absolutely.
great example.
Right? So that's a form of sarcasm. They're going, well, you idiot. Actually, they're calling the person an idiot. Going, look, it's stupid. But instead they said, well, why else would I be here? instead of saying,
Laura.
you joker, right? How are you today? Good to see you. So the big picture is sarcasm is low-grade anger disguised in a way that comes across as, you know what, there's a, just kind of a slight, you walk away from, man, what's wrong with him? What's up with that? Right? Kind of look at it kind of different.
Say it again, sarcasm is what?
Sarcasm is low-grade anger. Exactly what it is. So when I look at a lot of people that are sarcastic, they fall in that passive-aggressive role where you walk away and you go, man, I feel uncomfortable with that conversation. You ever had that happen? Or there was kind of something they said that they wanted to break you down, and they wanted to kind of make a comment against you, but they used it in sarcasm. So you kind of wonder, what did that person really say there? Right? Make sense?
Yeah, I know when you're sarcastic, like when I'm sarcastic to people, I get a lot of like, so what's that supposed to mean, huh? Like, what's that supposed to mean? Like, what are you trying to say? I get that a lot.
Wow. Aggressive. The aggressive communicator evades the space of a listener, speaks in a threatening manner, and may throw objects, glare, and attempt to intimidate the listener. He or she often attempts to blame the listener for whatever the source of the disagreement is. Obviously, well, if you hadn't done that, I wouldn't have thrown that at you. Wait a minute, you're the one that threw the plate against the wall. What did I do? I was just asking you what happened today, or I was asking you to pick up your cigarette butts. All of a sudden, the guy just picks it up, the can, and throws it at my buddy Isaac here. Well, wait a minute. All Isaac did was assertive. His aggressive anger, which he hasn't got a hold on, takes him to that unhealthy place. Okay? So here's how we're going to do it today. There's three most widely uses of anger, and we're going to look at passive first. Now, when you look at this sheet is going to be a template for you guys to have empathy towards the person who's passive aggressive. What is empathy? Putting yourself in the other person's shoes. Sympathy is, oh, that poor person, they're never going to change.
Yeah, that's far from.
Empathy is, okay, if someone's really passive and they're really self-dejected, they have low self-esteem, maybe you're the person that can see that and start building their self-esteem. Maybe you can be the first person that says, hey, you know what? Let's just talk. Let me hear where your heart's at. Right?
Yeah.
Because inside they're angry at themselves. Right? You ever met someone like that?
Yeah.
I can't believe I got myself in this situation. I was there. 34 years ago. I was addicted to rock cocaine. I couldn't believe I got to that point in my life. I was mad at Todd. So, hey, Taco, you coming to the anger management class?
Sissy.
Oh, Sissy? I call him Taco. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to look at these passive. The passive have learned that it is safer not to react and better to disappear than to stand up and be noticed. Fear of success and failure mark this stop. So someone who's really passive in their anger has gotten to the point where it's better just to avoid it, then I know I won't fail. They're in fear of failing, so they don't even try, right? So look at the feelings they have. They're holding our feelings in and expressing them in indirect, unhelpful ways. Here's their needs. Asking as if the other person's needs are more important than their own. So they're always looking at the other person's needs and not their own needs. But how can you ever be your best self if you don't take care of yourself? You cannot. Right? You cannot. Look at the opinions. We see ourselves as having little or nothing to contribute to the other person is always right. So if the other person's always talking over them, right? Someone's really aggressive, they feel like they can do no wrong. They can do no right. So why even talk? Just shut down. If you've had a person that's overly aggressive and you feel like you can't even talk to them because they're always cutting in on you, and everything you say, they put you down, all of a sudden you become this passive person that doesn't have a voice. Makes sense, right? Now watch what happens. Here's an example of passive behavior. I wish if only, I never, I can't, I ought to, I'd better, I'm sorry about this. Right? Now watch the short-term effects of passive. Reduction of anxiety, avoidance of guilt, a false sense of righteousness. So the effects of short-term passive behavior is reduction of anxiety. So if they avoid it, it reduces their anxiety for a little bit, then it comes back the next time they see them. Every time. So it's a short-term solution for a long-term problem. Because what they got to learn is how to be. Hey, when you say that, you know what? It makes me feel. Right? I don't like it when you say that. Could you please stop saying that? But they don't have the courage or the strength to do it. Make sense? Look at the long-term effects. Continuing loss of self-esteem, they feel worthless. Increased internal tension, leading to stress, anger, and depression. So someone who's real passive, they're still angry. Well, who are they angry at? Themselves, internal. Because they can't speak up. They haven't learned emotional intelligence, right? So that's one area, right? But here's the problem with the passive person. When that anger finally blows, it's ugly. When you finally make that passive person really, really angry where they can't take it anymore, they either self-inflict harm on themselves or they take it out on someone else. Then they become this aggressive person, but it takes a whole lot. And usually it's an internal harm.
So he's a bad guy.
No, it's the passive person self-internalizes it to
That's
the
the
point,
bad guy.
yeah, where they get so depressed, they think even of taking their own life.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Oh, consider that.
Yeah, they'll consider it, right? And heaven forbid that happen. But if we have empathy and we can see the person, right?
Yeah.
Then we can say, hey, you know, what's going on? I don't want to talk about it right now. Okay, whenever you want to, I'd be happy to listen. How about that, right? But we don't see it like, oh, what's wrong with that person? Man, they never talk, they never do nothing, right? Because they're mad at themselves. They're pissed off inside. They've learned that from someone else. Someone has told. If you tell your kid they're no good, you're never about to nothing, for 5 years, 6 years straight, what are they going to think? They're no good, they're never about to nothing. If you tell someone, you know, you're uniquely wonderfully made, that's it. God's got a plan for your life. If you learn this emotional intelligence, then you're going to have great strides where people want to be around you and not going to avoid it anymore. I guarantee you. How's that make you feel?
Make you feel great. And
Right.
on top of that, like, before I even knew about this class, some of the techniques you're talking about in here, I learned myself through experiences and like through living in the world the way I think, you know?
Yeah, me too.
And so like that's why a lot of things here make sense to me, and I'm like, really attentive on listening to it, because I mean I applied a lot of these skills without even knowing about this class. I was applying these skills in life, in early life to grow now.
Now you know.
And now this is the key to master it all.
So passive aggressive. A combination of styles. Passive aggressive avoids direct confrontation, but attempts to get even through manipulation. Passive aggressive and intentionally devious and sneaky, often ending up with, what, me? I didn't mean to do that.
Come on.
Oh, come on. Oh, come on. Right. Oh, come on. That wasn't really what I meant to say.
You know what I mean.
Yeah, right? After you'd already just taken them out at the knees, right? Yeah, I've been there. I've done it. Right? So it's passive aggressive. Pretending to be the innocent in response. This style of communication is generally malicious in intent, but often leads to decisive office politics, backstabbing, and starting rumors. Gossips. Make sense? Now watch what happens. Here's their feelings. Expressing of outward feelings, anger, crying, sarcasm in a distorted way for purpose of controlling the outcome. To hide inward feelings, embarrassment, and shame. Here's their rights. None for anyone else but the passive-aggressive person. All they think about is themselves. Opinions.
Selfish?
Pretty selfish. See others as only the means to fulfill games and manipulation. So, Brandy made a good point. Would you like to food today? Well, what else am I going to be here? Right? All they're thinking about is themselves.
Yeah.
You know, they're not saying, wow, thank you so much. Man, I appreciate you guys having this ready for me. You know, instead they're saying, give me the food, I'm out of here. You don't need nothing. Oh, I'm just coming here for food. Okay. Well, you take the high road here at this place because you guys give it to them anyway. You go to a restaurant, they say, you know, hit the door. We don't have to serve you. Right? Look at the examples. Crying, rolling of eyes, loud sighing, and use of sarcasm. You had someone do that to you, where they just go.
Yeah.
90% of communication is nonverbal. When someone that rolls their eyes and they sigh, what are they telling you? They don't care, right? They're bored. Could you please shut up, right? Make sense? So that's passive aggressive communication, right? So we did passive, we got passive aggressive. Yeah.
Actually, a real quick question. The person who never has eye contact with you, when you ask them, they do it all the time, what's that about? They do it, even if it's not an argument where you're talking, it's never.
They never have eye contact.
Never really eye contact.
So they could have been dealing with some trauma, you know, in their own life where something happened where, you know, that they're so frightened to look at people because they were always talked down to, you know, whatever it is. So sometimes you just let them know, hey, you know what? Can I see your eyes? Your eyes are beautiful, right? I mean, give them a compliment.
If it's a woman.
If it's a guy, you know, hey, man,
Hey, man, your hands on me.
yeah, what are you doing?
Okay.
You say that, you know, if the guy say, you know, he's running. I noticed you're always looking down, man. Sometimes I think, you know, we could just have eye contact and I know you're listening. Right? Here's some effects of passive. Short term. Winning, but intentionally hurtful, devious, and manipulative behaviors. Inward feelings of embarrassment, insecurity, and enviousness. So they may look kind of strong on the outside with all the sarcasm, but inside, they're pretty insecure. Here's the long-term effects. Guilt, shame, accumulated tension, stress, and anger, alienated, and alone. Most people that have that passive-aggressive communication are pretty lonely people. Because who really wants to be around someone who's sarcastic all the time? No one does. The last one is aggressive. Aggressive communication is the opposite of assertion. Aggressive communication always involves manipulation. When we attempt to make people do what we want by including guilt, hurt, or by using intimidation and control tactics, convert or overt. Convert is sneaky, overt is right out. Convert is kind of behind the scenes, oh, I'm gonna get him, right? You use someone else to come out. Overt, we simply want our needs met, and right now. So here's the feelings, expressing the feelings in an anger and destructive way. Their rights, demanding our own right, but doing it in such a way that we violate the rights of others. No one has the right to violate the rights of others. But we do. In this aggression, we violate the rights of others. Opinions. We see ourselves as having everything to contribute and see others having nothing or little to contribute. Examples. You have to, you always, you idiot, and why? You have to, you always, you idiot, and why? You ever told someone that they're pretty close to that you always do this? Have you ever used that? Right? But here's the reality, they don't always do it. So when you use always, you put them on the defense right away. Because what are they going to say? Well, I don't always do it. Remember that time that I did this? So if you take always out of the conversation, then you'll have more communication. You could say something like this, you know, most of the time, sometimes I see you do this, I notice, I wonder, right? But when you mention always and never, then you're going to put them on the defense every time. And they're going to be defensive to what you're trying to speak into their life. Right? Here's the effects of short term. Potential release of tension. Well, obviously, right? Immediate sense of power and domination and self-pity. Then they feel bad. I remember that time I got really angry at my daughter. Immediately, I felt like, you know, she finally heard what I said. It felt like self-pity. I should have never scared her like that. didn't like myself for what I did. So there's immediate release followed by this self-pity, right? Look at the long-term effects. Feelings of guilt and shame decrease self-confidence and self-esteem and lives in resentment and creates resentments in others. No one wants to be around someone who's always aggressive. So this is it. This is your homework. Everybody got this? This is a great homework. Now I want you to do it. You're going to bring it back.
Can I still take one thing, make sure, my number, please?
Is it 4 page?
30.
Okay.
30.
All right.
So this is a self-assessment. Okay? It's self-assessment. You're going to check the following box for each. How do the following consider your primary communication? So remember, the three most widely areas of communication we love everybody into is what? Passive, passive-aggressive, and aggressive, right? So everybody you communicate with this next 2 weeks, they're going to be in one of those three styles. Make sense? Now, don't go tell them. Whatever you do, don't go say, hey, you're passive-aggressive, right? This is for your information. So then you can see what I'm going to teach you in this assertive communication style. You're going to go, I don't love there anymore. I'm learning a new way of communicating. But it doesn't mean they're not going to stay in it because they don't have the tools yet. But you're going to be able to then navigate how to deal with it. Because they may never change, but they may see the change in you and want to change. They say you can lead a horse to water and make him not, and you can lead it, but you can't make him drink. I say you can lead a horse to water and make it look so attractive they got to taste it. And what I mean by that is this: they may say, "Come up to Isaac, say, Isaac, dude, I don't know what's going on with you, man, but this, I see a change in you, man. You don't get so intense anymore, man." They look at Isaiah and they say, "Man, you just don't avoid anymore. What's going on? What I've learned some new ways of communicating. I'm being my best self." But it takes time. They're not getting it learn overnight. How long did it take you to learn the red wheel? Your whole life, right?
My whole life.
So it may take a couple of years to figure this out, but if you keep doing it, it'll happen. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to look at your primary style. You're going to check the box. This is risky. Ask a spouse or a close friend what they think it is, right? And then ask another person, maybe someone you work with, what they think it is. But that's for you. That's for your information. Because if there's a starting point on what you got to work on, then you'll see how valuable learning that blue wheel techniques are. And we'll have more strategies to get out of it as we go on. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right? And then on the bottom, you are shopping at a mall, waiting for a parking spot. Another car drove into the parking space. What do you do or say?
What the?
Right? So you're going to have a couple examples. Right? Here's another one. You are jaywalking in a major metropolitan area. The police officer stops you, gives you a ticket. You have a deadline at work, and you are in a hurry to get back to work. You are already running late. What do you say to the officer? Good.
I would say, officer, please, like, I'm late for work and you just
I won't ever do it. I promise you.
So some things to think about, right? Make sense? All right. For 2 weeks, you guys got your homework assignment. I got an appointment I got to get to. Is this helping you guys?
Yes.
Right?
Tremendously.
So here's the deal. Here's it. Just remember, it's not how fast you go, it's how good you go fast. It's not about learning it all over time. Just whatever you've learned today, put it in practice. Whatever you took away from today, see if you can just put that into practice and watch what God does with it. He was good. He was good. You watch what God does. If he can roll the stone away in the garden after he died on Friday, he can do anything with this, right?
That's right.
If he can roll that stone away, God's got this. You got to let him do it.
Yes.
Right? Let's pray. Father God, thank you for today. Thank you for the attentiveness of these great folks that are in Selma, Lord. As they walk out the door today, may they use some of the techniques that you've shown us how to be most like you. And I believe actively listening, having empathy of others is what we've really experienced here today. I pray for the loved ones at these tables that they wouldn't lose heart, but you would give them strength and endurance to run the race, to win the prize, in which you call them heaven. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
All right. You guys are good. You guys are good students. You know what they say, when the student is ready, the teacher will teach them.
Right.
But don't shoot the messenger. I'm just a messenger. So So come back with some examples. Got it? Robert, very nice to meet you, brother. Very nice to meet you. You keep coming back. Carla, don't